The biggest mistakes that I've personally made in this game. What an embarrassing video. I gotta go over it. It's probably gonna help a lot of you. Some of you are going to laugh and relate to this. Let's get right into it. What up, team? It's your boy MurderInc here, back again with another Raid Shadow Legends video, talking about the biggest mistakes that I've made in my history of Raid since December 2018. Long time, lot of mistakes. Let's dive right into the first one. Feeding legendaries. Listen, judgment-free zone. Please, I'm begging all of you. If you value me as a content creator, don't judge. I've fed a Dracomorph before. He wasn't the same Dracomorph we all know and love now. He was different, but never feed legendaries. I know a lot of players who, I shouldn't say never. Listen, if you're free to play, it's your account. You can do whatever you want. 5-star chickens are a pain. So if you had to use one, I can say don't do it, but it's ultimately up to you. But the thing is, I've already experienced, I know there are players who have fed Mishold. I know there are players who have fed Kanjafin. Who else was crazy buff? Dracomorph, like I already mentioned. I can't really think of anybody else. Yannicka. I know there are players who have fed Yannicka. She is available in the shop. So, the clan shop, right? Yeah, the clan shop. So, that is that. Maybe there are other chambers I'm not thinking of. Leave a comment below if I'm missing somebody who was given a massive rework, but this is why you don't feed. You don't know who's going to get reworked. You can say, Murder, look at their history. They're nerfing everybody. Trust me. It could be a year from now. It could be tomorrow. It could be 2 weeks from now. We don't know what they're going to do with these champions. Honestly, they don't know what they're going to do with these champions. So, if you can, try to hold off. And now, this doesn't just apply to legendaries. The same thing goes for epics. Now, if you're a high spender, you might think, I don't care about epics. Look at Inquisitor Shamael. Yes, he was nerfed, but he's still crazy good. There's going to be lots of new content down the road in Raid. You don't really know who you're going to need, especially in multiple copies of. That's kind of the tricky part. I'm not expecting anyone to save up multiple copies. I don't know why we don't have more space. I don't personally use all my space. As we can see, 278 out of 400, 273 out of 300. So I have over 100 spots available with full faction guardians. I have hundreds of legendaries. I think 300 and something legendaries. So I got a lot of stuff and I still have enough space, but there are players who don't want to spend resources to unlock more slots, and it's a problem. I recognize that. Should we get them for free? Yes. Do we all know Plarium? Yes. We've been playing for long enough. Are they going to give it to us for free? No. So, with that being said, we got to be careful with who we feed for epics. We already went over legendaries. I've fed quite a few really good epics. Thankfully, like I said, I do spend, so I pull enough to kind of get those champions back throughout time. Some of them I don't. I can't think of a specific example of a champion that I didn't have that I had to try hard to get. Yeah, I can't think of it on the top of my head. I know they exist for sure. I know that I'll go into my index and say, where is this epic champion? Rain Beast. Rain Beast is OP now. It just, not literally. Everyone relax. He used to be. He got nerfed. Rain Beast is OP now. Where's my Rain Beast? I fed him. You never want to be in that situation because shard pulling is so RNG. I don't have to explain this to you guys. You guys already know this. So one of my biggest mistakes I've ever made was feeding champions without thinking about it, without considering how long I was going to be playing. I knew pretty much from the start that I really liked this game a lot and I was going to play it for a long time, way before I was a content creator. So I probably should have known, but even been extra cautious just in case. Maybe I was iffy on the game, said maybe I play it, maybe I don't. Let me just start feeding. What if you end up liking it? Then you just have to start over a new account, and if you spent money, it feels bad. So don't do it. Just don't do it. Okay, next mistake. I've gone over this before. I'm probably going to make an updated one. Great Hall Guide. So let's talk about the Great Hall real swift, shall we? I rushed accuracy to 10 because I was watching another content creator at the time. This was before I was doing content creation, and it was the biggest mistake I've ever made. If you're doing your Great Hall, you know it's a pain to get these medals all the way to 10 out of 10. Unless you've been playing for a long time. Don't look at my 27,000 medals and say, that's insane, you're already maxed. I've been playing for years, and years, so it doesn't matter. Everything's relative to time spent in this game. Why am I saying this? Because look at the medals, okay? So you get 40 accuracy if you stop at 600 silver medals, which is very doable as far as like a first push for a Great Hall outside of the missions, which is like HP, defense, and attack and everything but void, or maybe it's just attack and everything but void. I don't remember, it's been so long. Having to go 700 gold medals, 800, 900, 1000, and then realizing I didn't need that much accuracy, because accuracy chest piece, I mean, you can just do the math. Accuracy chest piece, assuming no bonuses. I mean, we have the faction guardian as well, which is a plus, but let's just not even consider that. So chest piece, accuracy, any 2-set bonus, accuracy 2-set, perception, very easy to get now with the forge, and then substat accuracy on a necklace, and you have enough accuracy for 90% of the content in this game. The content you can't do, you're nowhere near when you're getting your first Great Hall point, or first, I guess, medal here on the Great Hall. So biggest regret, biggest waste of time was going for accuracy here. What I should have done is either focused on crit damage for my campaign farmer, which I've been advocating from the start, because crit damage is so hard to stack. One of the most sought after items in the game outside of speed boots is going to be crit damage gloves with crit rate in the substat, so you can build a solid damage dealer. This helps you out. You're going to be using crit rate gloves for such a long time, and if I had been smarter when I first started, I would have stopped accuracy in all of the affinities that I wanted to at level 6 before the gold medals and things really started ramping up. Then I would have went to crit damage, or I would have, if for some reason I had insane damage gear, I would have then went to defense, I would have then went to HP. HP is the meta survival stat for those of you who don't know. Defense is good, surviving and dealing damage, and then attack. And then I probably would have went back to accuracy, then resistance. Resistance is more of an endgame stat, so I didn't care about that. But that was a huge mistake I made. Definitely held me back. I'm not gonna lie, my progression did suffer from that because I could have used the extra damage and I didn't have it. So all of these things. The next thing is kind of on the same line here, rushing arena. For some reason, when I started playing this game, first of all, keep in mind I am talking about 2019, early 2019. Gold 4 was beautiful back then. So many interesting teams to fight. People didn't have a lot of champions back then. I mean, whales were still whales back then, but let me see. Shiramani, Arbiter, Skull Crown was the absolute queen. I mean, we still see her. What are the odds we still see her today in this list right here? So she was the absolute queen. We saw her everywhere, but the meta was just more fun back then. It was still a speed meta. Look at that double Skull Crown. We're talking about it. It was still more fun, but for some reason, it wasn't easy. I'm not going to say it was easy back then. It definitely was not. People didn't know a lot about the game, but for some reason, I focused so much on arena, and it was a huge struggle because I was playing, what's the right phrase? I was playing like ahead of where I should have been. So I was grinding out battles. I had maybe like a 50% win rate, which is not efficient at all. What I should have done, burned through my 10 tokens in the lowest difficulty and just set a one-man defense. Just get as many medals as I can. The key here, and it's what I'm going to show you right now, if you didn't notice it already, 100% win rate. This is what you want. You don't want to overextend yourself, even if it means more gold medals, because just do the math in your head. If you're not winning 100% of the time, it's not worth your time. Yes, there's a point to be made for silver 4, gold 1, or bronze 4, silver 1, but I'm telling you, you're going to have a much better time if you farm where you're comfortable and always winning. Instead of pushing outside of your comfort zone, you're going to be facing much stronger teams. There's always that probability of losing if you're not built as good as they are. So rushing arena, huge mistake. I've wasted so many. I probably and realistically could have finished my Great Hall literal months earlier if I had giving myself this advice that I'm saying now. Don't focus on arena. It's kind of boring anyways, but that's a whole other topic. Play where you're comfortable. 100% win rate is the most important thing for arena, and don't overexpand. If that's fun for you, however, this is not the advice for you. Keep that in mind. If that is fun for you, if you enjoy winning, losing, you don't care about that part of progression, go for it. I'm not going to say don't do something that's not fun just because it's not the most efficient. This is a game we play to have fun, so do that. But for me personally, it was a huge progression mistake. The next thing is something that a lot of players are going to be able to relate to: putting masteries on champions that you just don't use. Okay, so this is something that I do a lot as a content creator, and it's fine, but I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about champions that, okay, so masteries are pretty straightforward. If you're not familiar with masteries, it's very important in this game to go through the mastery list in your spare time and look at what they do. The benefits are very big, but they're not very big in every aspect of the game. If you're not struggling clearing content, so if you're farming, let's say, stage 15, that's your go-to farm for dragon. You're not struggling at all. You're clearing the waves, you're fine. It is not worth mastering up a new champion you just got if you're going to shave off a minute of your time, 30 seconds of your time. It's just not worth it. Unless time is that valuable to you and you have lots of resources to spend, it's just not worth it. I made this mistake so many times. So I would get a champion, say, wow, this is gonna increase my current farm time by a little bit. I mean, when I say 30 seconds to a minute, that may sound like a lot, but I'm talking back then when 5 minutes was common for progression farming. So with that being said, don't do it. I recommend just don't do it. Test the champion first. See if I got any better as is, then really consider what you're going to be getting from the masteries. Perfect example, this Fushan here. His masteries are not maxed. I've had him for a long time. He's a... Actually, no, this is just me. Okay, so let me just embarrass myself really quickly. I will come clean right now if you guys like and subscribe to the channel. Quick plug, shameless, I don't care. Do that, and let's talk about this. I empowered, I think, okay, so I have a decent amount of plus fours. 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, no, 15. So I have 15 plus 4 champions. What does this mean? I fed 4 of the same legendaries to all these champions. I found on over half of the 15, listen to this, half of the 15 that I empowered the main champion unbooked without masteries. Now, if that's not the stupidest thing you've heard today, let me know in the comment section right now, because I was very embarrassed and it was a massive waste of resources. I mean, just consider books alone. The fact that I had fully booked champions and there was no pop-up message. I mean, it's my fault. I'm not going to try to blame this on Plarium. But I had champions I had to rebook because I fed full booked versions to them in the empowerment. Same thing with masteries. Fully mastery champions, empowering a champion with no masteries, and it was just a disaster. I was devastated when I found out. Regardless, my point that I'm talking about now is masteries. The same thing, in fact, applies to books. Booking champions without reading is huge. Let's take Fushan since we're on him. Do I need a 3-turn cooldown on his A2? Probably not in any scenario. 20% chance of placing a stun, fine. Goes up to 35%. Is that really going to make or break your run? I'm gonna just assume for everyone who has them 9 out of 10 times, the answer is no. The A3, 25% additional chance of placing defense down, 50 to 75. This is the thing. If it's not going to 100%, the value plummets. Yes, you can say, oh, well, murder, 50-50 is much worse than 75% compared to a 50-50, right? 50-50 to, what is it, 75-100? Yeah, okay, so we're gonna use that for now. 5-turn cooldown going down to a 3-turn cooldown. This is not a consistent defense down champion by any means. So he doesn't need to be booked for most content. So what you need to do is the same thing for masteries. Run the champion without books first, run it without masteries first, then say, is investing a book in this champion going to greatly affect my run? Watch the run, say, okay, he's using shred now. What would it have been like if he used shred 2 turns earlier? Would it have been game changing? Run it 5 times, 10 times. That's the best way to book every single champion in this game. I really wish someone told my younger raid self that, because I would have saved, no exaggeration, thousands of legendary books, over 1,000 of epic books. Same applies to rares as well. If you're, I mean, people think, okay, rare books, whatever, I can get them progressing, clan boss, the lower difficulties. I think maybe not so much the higher ones anymore because they were removed, but you don't have to book every single champion you have. It's going to be a waste for most players. I can see that pretty confidently after having completed all of the content in the games multiple times and multiple accounts. You just don't need it. I think one of the biggest things and one of the biggest gotcha grabs of this game is thinking you have to 100% completionist all of your champions to, I guess, get the best results, when the best results can be very, very marginal, even though books can be huge in some other champions. So you really have to take the time, think about it, and look at each and every single champion before doing this. This should help tons of players. Like I said, I really, really wish if I could pick one thing of advice, it would be this point about the books and masteries to tell my older self when I first started playing the game. The next thing is something I kind of went over in the last video I released, trying to progress with the high win rate. Now, this is something that I would not expect most people to understand when they're playing, because, I mean, maybe they do. I don't know. I could be wrong here. But what I mean by this is, if I'm doing stage 12 Ice Golem, I'm reaching it for the first time, it's not easy, I wipe on wave 2, that doesn't mean stop. That doesn't mean stop, re-gear your champions. It means keep going, see exactly what condition is wiping you, and maybe you're going to have a 50% chance, a 40% chance of clearing that stage. The only stage that matters for consistency is going to be the one you're going to farm. You could say murder, progression's pretty straightforward. You go until you can't anymore. Okay, but affinities matter a lot. Some people can have really strong force affinity teams, which is red, which means you're going to want to stop on a blue stage. So if you have to get to that blue stage, the other stages can be a lot more difficult. With that being said, you're going to have to RNG your way through it. I was not doing this at the start. As soon as I failed once, I was saying, okay, back to the drawing board, new gear, I buy shards, whatever I was doing back then. I know for a fact I wasn't just plowing through all of this. So, huge mistake that I made, giving up way too early on the fight without understanding what's wiping me. That might sound like the only use, but this is going to prepare you for all future content. If you approach all content like this, you're going to progress so much faster than the average player. It's going to blow your mind, I promise you. So another huge mistake that I made. Wish I knew this back then. Not as much as the Mastery and book thing, but definitely big, and it definitely held me back weeks, if not months at a time. Based on all of this, by the time stage 20 and stage 25 dungeons were a thing, I was pretty good. I understood it by then, but I did miss a lot of the early on stages to that. Now, the final thing that I want to talk about for this video, final piece of advice, is going to be Nightmare Campaign. I get people asking me this all the time. Murder, what should I be doing for a Nightmare Campaign? I am hard stuck. Can't get any further. Don't even worry about Nightmare Campaign. I did not approach Nightmare Campaign until I was so far into the game that it all fell over. You might be thinking, well, that's not efficient. You're missing a sacred. You're missing a chicken. You're going to get it eventually. You really are. You're going to get it eventually if you want to wait. I believe there are missions for this in the Arbiter. Could be wrong. Don't quote me on that. It's been a while. But once I finished Brutal, I said, GG easy. I mean, Nightmare wasn't even in the game when I finished Brutal, but once Nightmare came out, I didn't even jump into it first. I really didn't. I said, okay, this is cool. The thing is, let's look at Brutal really quick. Brutal stage 1. 8 energy per. Now let's go to Nightmare. 16 energy per attempt here. So this is the exception to the list when I said you don't want a high win rate. This is different because look at all the stages we have. 1, 2, let's see, it goes up to 12 stages. We have 7 stages. That's a lot of 16 energy attempts there. So if you're not one-shotting this all, you're wasting a lot of time. And more likely than not, once you do Nightmare for the first time, you're not going to be 3-starring at all the first time you're in there. I did 3-star it the first time I went in there because I was looking ahead and saying, this is what I should be doing. So this is another huge mistake that I made. The bosses are a significant jump from the brutal difficulty. So all of this stuff together, don't make the same mistake I did. If you die once in one stage, just leave Nightmare. Don't say, I'll get it the next time. You could get it the next time and progress further, get some rewards, but it's just not worth it. Make your champions better, work on that Great Hall slowly, improve your gear. It's not going to come, I mean, it could come from Nightmare. It's not the worst place to farm, but ideally just focus on getting 5-star boots from Brutal Campaign, 5-star chest piece, the stats you do want, and then go from there into dungeons, forge, huge faction wars, then come back to Nightmare once you're prepared, because huge energy waste. Now, with this being said, like I said, this is going to be my last point here. The question is, what mistakes have you guys made that you can reflect on? I want to know what aligned with what I already said here today. Do we have things in common? Do we have things not in common? I did get lucky for a bit because I had pretty good, I guess, teachers. I was always attracted to the best players of the game at the time when I was there, hopping through clans until I met and got to the top clan at the time, and then we built up from there. So I was lucky to be in a group like that where I was constantly feeding off of that. I was never fed wrong information, which I'm sure is a huge issue. I know one of the things that got me into content creating, kind of shot me up when I first started. I didn't have to go through the struggle and grind a lot of other content creators had to go through, is because of the Rhodos fusion. Many content creators said skip it, he looks terrible, his kit makes no sense. I said no, he's going to be literally unreal, and I made like 5 videos on him. They popped off instantly, and that's what started my content creating career. So don't use that as an example. I'm sure it happens all the time, but bad advice, it's going to happen no matter what. People don't really know what they're getting into. They're going to believe someone who says, I've been doing this forever, regardless. Even without fact checking them, it's hard to do on the internet. So that's not a good excuse, but I am curious as to what you guys struggled with in this game. What are some of the biggest mistakes you made? How do they compare to the mistakes I made? And hopefully I can save a few people if you have watched this all the way through, and you won't make the same mistakes I did, because I lost so much time. I wouldn't be any further, because once you get to a certain point when you're end game, you just kind of flatline for a while. So it's been a long time since I would have felt any difference, but back at the time, reflecting on it, I could have been there a lot sooner. So that's going to conclude my video. If you enjoyed this content, smash that like button, subscribe, hit that notification bell, turn all notifications on, and I will see you all in my next upload.